Hey guys, the more you look at this raid on Oldschoolmtg by the Pinkertons, the more and more interesting and curious it becomes. But before we get into that, of course, I want to remind everybody that this is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde Games makes the kind of adventures that they like to play, whether it's for Castles and Crusades, 5th edition D&D, or the OSR. Old School is in play at the table, and they are clearing out their 5th edition D&D in-print modules right now, and that covers a wide range of adventures from a dismal swamp full of lizard men to a dusty caravan trail full of mystery and adventure. Use the code 5EOOP at checkout to receive 50% off your order. And they have a ton of modules that can easily be converted to other systems, so I recommend you check that out. So let's go into this. This actually comes to us from Gizmodo, and I'll link to that, of course, in the comments below. Now, I was actually kind of aware of this bit of information here that I'm going to share with you guys. Magic Raid wasn't the first time Wizards of the Coast hired the Pinkertons, and this is by Linda Codega, and they tell us that according to Dan Cannon, a YouTuber known as Oldschoolmtg, Magic the Gathering publisher Wizards of the Coast sent Pinkerton agents to his home in order to retrieve a selection of unreleased cards from the latest Magic the Gathering set. Of course, we know about that, and the more I read about this, the more infuriating it is, because when they showed up at his house, they didn't just knock on the door and stand there, because if we look here, after his wife asked them to wait outside, Cannon says that they forced themselves at least partially through the door and prevented her from closing the door all the way. That's dangerous for more than a few reasons for everybody considered, but of course Wizards is saying they strongly refute this depiction of events, which contradicts the report from the investigation, as well as the conversation between the individual and Wizards of the Coast representative after the interaction in question. Right, because after they've been threatened, people have never tended to be cowed and say what you wanted to hear. So this goes on, and this talks about Oldschoolmtg's encounter. You guys can read this whole thing. I'm not going to go through this point by point. We've kind of touched on it. But an interesting detail they bring up here. According to Wizards of the Coast, the company initiated several phone calls to the individual in order to make contact, though we understand why he would be reluctant to answer an unknown number. When we were unable to make contact, local contractors were asked to try and make contact and request help in the investigation, including the return of product which can aid in our investigation. The company also confirmed that it offered to replace all of the unreleased product with the correct released cards, which I don't dispute that. But to continue on, first of all, let me just pause here and say, as we kind of look at this, once again, and as always, I don't dispute that this was moratorium product that should not have been released. It was a mistake. It was not a mistake that merited goons showing up and trying to force their way into this guy's house, as he says they did, according to this Gizmodo article. But they mentioned, and I had heard about this, so back in 2017, Wizards of the Coast worked with a number of groups and individuals, including private investigators, investigators who specialize in supply chains, cybersecurity experts, and local law enforcement, because there was a sheet, an uncut foil sheet of cards for something called Ixalan, which was stolen. Now, it was stolen property Wizards was within their rights to use legal channels to get it back, and they got it back. Here's where things get interesting. So that happened back in 2017. The head of investigations for Wizards of the Coast. Yes, I guess they have a security apparatus built into their company. Because this is a cyberpunk dystopia and everybody has to have their own private security. The head is a gentleman here, and I have his LinkedIn page. I'm a little reluctant to bring it up. I don't want to appear to be doxing the guy, but this is a publicly available page. Don't harass this guy, okay? Edward Giannetti. And there's also a Robin M. Klimek, who's the director of security risk management at Hasbro, and he was previously the director of supply chain security practices at Pinkerton Consulting and Investigations. The current manager of global investigations is also a former Pinkerton agent. And that, of course, is Edward Giannetti, and that's his LinkedIn page there. You can look it up if you're on LinkedIn. I'm not going to put it up on the screen right now. But, yeah, so Wizards of the Coast apparently has a very good relationship, at least in terms of drafting employees from the Pinkerton agency to their own company for loss prevention. Guys, I've said it before. When all this started up, this is bad news. Them working with these people, whether you're a Magic player, whether you're a D&D enthusiast, whether you like Transformers or G.I. Joe, these people, if they perceive for whatever reason that you've stepped out of line, will send these goons that they have a very tight relationship with to your house. And here's the evidence. I'm not just making this up. Now, again, to get back something they thought that shouldn't be out there in the public, absolutely acceptable. The stolen uncut card sheet, it was stolen. It was their property. To use the Pinkertons? Guys, that's dystopic. And quite frankly, I'm very, very uncomfortable with the fact that they seem to be just in bed with me. They didn't just grab the yellow pages and look these guys up, okay? They didn't have to. All they had to do was fire off an inter-office email, and this whole awful machine started working. So anyway, of course, I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'll link to this article down below. Of course, please show some love to Oldschoolmtg. That guy has gotten, the seriously bad treatment from Wizards of the Coast. So I'll link to his channel again. Go subscribe to him too. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll keep you guys apprised of any further information as things pop up. And until then, as I said before, don't open the door for strangers. Peace.